Joshua, right? What's the point in us saying that?
Cody didn't have it yet.
Excuse me, sir, are you Joshua, right?
Yes.
How much time do you need?
Like a month.
Do they give you the file?
No.
So you can come right up here. Oh, right.
Thank you. You're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Drew Aldrich. You can hear me, sir? Mr. Aldrich, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Drew Allen Aldrich. File number is 22-03313. Mr. Aldrich, today's the date and the time that's set for probation. Except for arraignment. Set arraignment with the jury trial. Okay, so this is set for probation violation arraignment. However, it looks like there's been a new one issued since the time this initial one was set. So I have one here that says it's a request and summons for probation violation. It's dated for April 14th, 2023. It alleges that you violated the terms of you and conditions of your probation by committing the following technical probation violations. And that is a violation of testing positive on March 27th, 2023 for THC with a result of 3,416 nanograms per milliliter, and alcohol with a result of an ETG of someone whited out part of this. It says 135,512 nanogram per ETS of 30,576 nanograms. Just white it out. I have another violation here, and this request and summons for violation is dated for May 17th, 2023. It states here that you allegedly committed the following technical violation, and that is that you tested positive at PAT on March 31st, 2023, with the result of THC 748 nanograms and an ETG of 194,922 over ETS of 49,322 on April 18th, 2023, a result of THC in the amount of 548 nanograms and an ETG of 20,124 over ETS of 3,952 nanograms, and on April 24th, 2023, THC in the amount of 1,956 nanograms and ETG of 68,094 over ETS of 14,612 nanograms. So on both of these matters, you have the right to have a contested hearing. You have the right to be represented by an attorney during those contested hearings, sir. At the time of the hearings, you have the right to have the prosecution and the probation department put forth evidence to establish whether or not you violated the terms and conditions of your probation as alleged. If you're found to be guilty of the violation, sir, your probation status can be revoked, or you can be sentenced to a term of jail time, or your probation status can be extended. You can have some additional sanctions and or programming added as a result. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you requesting court-appointed counsel to represent you during the
I am, Your
probation violation? You are not?
I am.
You are, okay. Mr. Mayor, if you do me a favor and turn that behind. To the court rule, note that you are requesting court-appointed counsel. I'll also enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. If I can get a public defender online, I'll get you in a private meeting room with them so they can get some information from you, okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
In person. Your hearing's gonna be June 12th, at what time?
1:30.
At 1:30 in person. Do you have any questions for the court at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, hang tight. It looks like Ms. Donnelly is gonna log in so she can speak to you, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is Julie Leha here?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Julianne Leha, file number is 22-02934. Counsel appears.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Case Markarian appearing on behalf of the people.
May it please the court, Deborah Martinez here on behalf of defendant Julie Leha.
It was the date and time that was set for a hearing on a
Correct.
probation violation. Are we proceeding to hearing today?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so we have a witness here.
Yes, we do.
They request the probation officer to come upstairs. Who is the probation?
Yes, it's Brendan Hannah.
Okay, we'll do that. Can we have Mr. Henry come up, please? Who else is here for it? Let's see.
Heather Dahl would be the witness.
Yeah, I have a 3 o'clock restitution hearing in Grand Rapids.
Mr. Caldwell?
Yeah, with Stephanie Norris.
Okay. And is your client having a hearing?
We are not.
You might be in trouble getting into court to Grand Rapids by 3 o'clock, it's already 2.
I know.
Okay. While we're waiting for Mr. Hannah to come up, I'll call your case. We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Stephanie Norris. File number is 22-02588. Counsel appears.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Case Markarian appearing on behalf of the people.
Attorney Mark Caldwell appearing on behalf of Ms. Norris.
Okay, Ms. Norris, today was the date and the time that was set for a hearing of probation violation. Okay, And the allegation that you were previously arraigned on was that you tested positive for alcohol with an ETG of 30,004 nanograms per milliliter that Reality Council went back on February 9th, 2023. It's also a violation that you picked up a new OWI second in Van Buren back on January 19th. Which would have been a few days before your sentencing. No, that was not disclosed to the court. Counsel.
Your Honor, she got the charge in Van Buren County. In that case, she was sentenced to 40 days in jail. She served the jail starting on April 17th. Prior to that, the judge did require a tether as well. So she was on a tether from 215 to 417. And then did the 40 day, or was sentenced to 40 days in jail. Currently, she is, well, in that case, we tried to get her moved to the sobriety court in Kent County. And then she met with the sobriety, the only sobriety court in Kent County that would take her is Kentwood. They were the only county that, or the only court that just transfers, but when they met with her, she's going to be in an HPRP program because she's a nurse. And so they said that the HPRP program would be a better fit for her than sobriety court. So we did not accept her in the sobriety court. And I think that's why the judge kind of hammered her pretty hard with the 40-day jail sentence.
Well, there's a couple of concerns before we address how we're going to address the current violation. She would have picked that up, according to my records, 4 days before she was here for sentencing. Neither you nor her mentioned that at the time of her sentencing. So there was no candor, there was no disclosure, there was no transparency, and that's concerning. This is a situation where even at the time of the original time she was going to take the plea, you didn't even have a police report. And I didn't know that until you tried to elicit a factual basis and advised that you didn't have a police report. And then I had concerns that she might have been under the influence via Zoom, had to order her here in person. So there's been concerns ongoing. So I don't blame the judge and the other county for hammering you, because I don't believe that you all use these experiences and appearances before the court to properly address this. And trying to evade and skirt the process to get you the best outcome is not always to your benefit, because as you can see, you had a plea here offered for the first time back in October, then months later you pick up a new one. So there was an ongoing issue. And thankfully you're still alive and it's still in one piece, but that didn't have to be the case. You could be dead. Someone else could be dead because of decisions that you're making. And you're a health professional. There's a standard that should be there. There's knowledge that's there. And I recognize you probably have some issues that you're dealing with, or maybe some stresses, but you can't deal with it this way. So we're not having a hearing? Okay, so she's pleading guilty to the allegation. Is she on a scram tether still?
Yes. Mr. Honor.
Okay. Can you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give us the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Okay, you have the right to have a contested hearing here in this matter as it relates to the violation, and you have the right to have the prosecution and the probation department, the probation officer is in the courtroom now, to put on evidence to establish and prove whether or not you violate the terms of your bond, of your probation by testing positive for alcohol on February 9th. You want to waive that contested hearing today?
Yes, ma'am.
Is anybody threatening you to get you to waive the hearing? Any promises being made to you in exchange for you waiving the hearing?
No, Your Honor.
And you're pleading guilty freely and voluntarily
Yes, Your Honor.
as to the violation that you tested positive for alcohol with an ETG. Sorry, of 30,400 nanograms per milliliter on February 9th, 2023. How do you plead? Guilty, Your Honor. On a factual basis, please. Okay. will you
On
put-
January
Okay.
18th, were you in Van Buren County driving a vehicle on a public roadway?
Yes,
And at that time, had you consumed alcohol prior to driving?
yes,
Did the alcohol you consumed materially affect your ability to drive?
yes.
Did you take a breath or blood test?
I did both.
And what was the results of the blood test?
Don't remember.
Okay, well, the factual basis is actually to the violation, so I just need her to articulate, because the violation is on February 9th, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so were you placed on a term of probation by this court?
yes,
And part of your terms and conditions of your probation were that you were not to use, purchase, or to possess alcohol while on probation, is that correct?
yes,
Okay, and you were also ordered to submit to random preliminary breath testing during your analysis testing?
yes,
Okay, and so did you submit to testing back on February 9th, 2023?
yes,
That was at Reality Counseling?
yes, it was.
Had you been consuming alcohol prior to that?
Yes,
Okay, so the results that I have is that you tested positive with an ETG of 30,400 nanograms per milliliter. Do you have a reason to dispute that that's accurate? Okay, any questions other than that?
No, Your Honor, people are satisfied with the factual basis.
Thank you. The court is also satisfied with the factual basis. I'll accept your plea. I find your plea to be made freely, voluntarily, and intelligently. The recommendation was to continue your probation and to extend it. To add outpatient treatment and 12-step meetings 3 times per week. Says defendant has orders appointment on February 2nd. What is that, Mr. Hannah?
Jody Bayless.
Says Mr. Hannah on my paper.
Wait, is it?
Stephanie.
Oh, Ms. Norris,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
She says Ms.
Yeah,
Hannah,
I've
your
been seeing her
handwriting
in
right
person.
here. I didn't want to out you, but. Definitely says you. Okay, so I don't know if that's something that still needs to be taken care of, but it looks like you were supposed to end your probationary term back on April 23rd. Because I originally only put you on a short term of probation. Would not have done that had I known that you had just picked up another one. But nonetheless, you've been on Scram since March. And did you go into custody during that time?
so on February 15th, the Van Buren County judge, it would have been Judge McKay, ordered me to be on it as a condition of bond. And then once I was sentenced on April 17th to a term of jail, after I had been placed in custody, they came and removed it.
Okay, so you've already served your jail time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I was gonna say we haven't had any violations, but part of that time you were in custody, you're back on Scram Tether, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I am gonna extend your probation. I'm gonna extend it 6 months. And are you still wearing a Scram for the other court, or is it just for my court?
It's just for your court.
I'm going to continue to Scram Tether for the next 60 days. I'm going to add outpatient. If you're already completing or participating in the outpatient treatment, you just need to provide evidence of that to Mr. Hannah, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to order that you complete a 12-step meeting 3 times per week or as recommended by probation. Do you have any questions about the order of the court, ma'am? I will say that you do, this is probably the first time I've seen you and you don't look like you're under the influence. So that's a positive thing, okay?
Okay.
And hopefully you stay on that track because I'm sure you have a bright future. If it doesn't, it shouldn't involve alcohol though. And definitely not alcohol and driving. So if you have any questions, you can follow up with your probation officer. And other than that, hopefully we won't see you back here for something like this. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hannah here. We're back on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Julie Leha. And we were prepared to start the hearing now.
Yes, Your Honor. People are ready. to proceed.
Beth is ready.
And you can call your witness.
People call Heather Dahl to the stand.
Just have them hold it.
Heather Dahl, yeah.
You raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury. Yes, I do. Thank you. You can have a seat there. There's a microphone that's in front of you. I have a court reporter behind you, and the court reporter has to take down everything being stated here today. So I need you to keep your voice loud and clear. Make sure your responses are verbal. You can't do head nods or shakes or mm-hms and uh-huhs because that's difficult to understand in the record, okay? Can you state your first and last name and spell both of them?
Heather Dahl, Heathdr, Dahl.
You can proceed, Councilman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Dahl. Where do you work?
Crystal Ray Counseling Services,
Where is Crystal Ray Communities or Counseling Services located?
1717 North High Street.
Is that in the city of Lansing,
It is.
County of Ingham,
Yes,
state of Michigan?
yes.
In what capacity do you work at Crystal Ray?
I am a peer recovery mentor. I also am a prevention specialist and a counseling substance abuse person.
So what would your day-to-day duties be?
I run all the prevention programs. I do anger management, parenting, strengthening families, and then I do peer recovery. I counsel people one-on-one.
Do you know Ruby Alvarez?
I do.
How do you know Miss Alvarez?
She was one of my parents.
What does that mean?
She attended my 10-week parenting class, parent nurturing, and then she did the strengthening families program.
Do you know Julie Leha?
I do not.
Have you ever come into contact with Julie Leha?
No, I have not.
Could you identify Julie Leha in court today?
I can because I was aware of who she was out in home.
Would you please identify Miss Leha by an article of clothing?
She's wearing the blue, yellow shirt.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect Ms. Dahl has identified Julie Leha.
Any objections on
No,
invitation?
no objection.
Objections noted.
Now, have you ever come into contact in a professional capacity with Ms. Leha?
No, I have not.
So did you write a letter to the court concerning Ms. Leha?
Yes, I did.
What was that letter about?
She had been calling my work and talking to my supervisor, asking for my,
Objection is the hearsay.
Your Honor, the rules of evidence don't apply in a probation violation.
Objections overruled.
so she was fishing for information on my client and also questioning my credentials.
So when you say she was fishing for information on your client, what client?
Ms. Alvarez,
And why did you write a letter to the court concerning that contact?
because she continued to call my job. And I was trying to just ask her to stop calling my job.
When was she called?
I'd say it's probably been about 3 months.
Now, when did she first start calling? Do you remember what date you wrote that letter?
papers. I don't even remember the letter.
Would it refresh your memory if I approached you with that letter?
It was,
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with the letter?
Absolutely.
Could please just read that silently in your head, and whenever you're done, just look up that. Thank you. Did reviewing that letter refresh your memory?
yes,
What date did you write that letter?
4/4/23.
Did you receive any more calls after this letter?
No, I did not. That was after the third call, and I called the probation agent and asked if he speak with the lady and asked her not to call me down anymore.
Do you remember what the probation agent's name was?
Brian, that's what I can do.
You said there was 3 different calls, or at least you wrote this letter after the third call. Do you remember how many calls in total the defendant made?
About 3.
Do you remember approximately when they first started calling?
By the end of March.
So from your recollection, then it would be from the end of March through the start of April that you were getting calls. And these were calls from the defendant asking about Ruby Alvarez.
Yes, and my credentials.
You know why she was asking about your credentials?
I do not.
So was she calling just to get your credentials, or was she trying to get information about Miss Alvarez as well?
One of her questions was, did I have the credentials to do drug testing?
Do you know how that relates to Miss Alvarez?
I did do drug testing with Miss Alvarez.
Was she asking for reports of drug tests done on Miss Alvarez?
I'm not aware of that.
Is Miss Leha one of your clients?
No.
Did she have any reason to be contacting you?
No.
Did she have any reason to be contacting the facility as a whole that you're aware of?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions for Ms. Dahl.
Okay.
Ms. Dahl, you stated you have never personally spoke to Ms. Leha, correct?
Correct.
So everything that you're relying on today are things that were relayed to you from a third person, correct?
Yes, my supervisor.
And that would be Texie Stolas?
Yes, it would.
Okay. And so you don't know if specifically during those conversations, how many times, if any, my client used Ruby Alvarez's name?
No.
You said she was asking about your qualifications, correct?
Yes.
Do you know that my client is the stepmother to Ruby Alvarez's children?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And do you know that in Miss Alvarez's absence over the course of many years, that Miss Leha has been parenting those children?
I don't know anything about all that.
Okay, so you don't know that she is the one who's actually been in the house, feeding them, paying for their food, getting them to school, getting them to medical appointments, all of the information.
I'm not sure to do that. I don't know anything about it.
Do you know that she's married to Pedro, who is the ex
Yes, I'm
of?
aware of that.
Okay. All right. Were you involved in an issue with a Malaya who was disappearing from her custodial parents' house
Yes, I know.
with Ruby?
Excuse me?
That she was with Ruby?
No, I didn't know that.
Okay. So you didn't know that Miss Alvarez, even though she doesn't have custody of her children, had aided in taking a young teenage girl from the custodial home?
So what I know about that situation is the child had run away. And there's a CPS report made, and CPS didn't do anything, and the child told Miss Alvarez that she was gonna run away. If they didn't do anything, and the child ran away.
Did you
That's
know
what I
Miss?
know.
Did you know Miss Alvarez denied having the child to the police?
No, I did not.
Did you know she denied having the child to the child's father and stepmother?
No, I do not. I believe she made calls to the father.
Do you know when Miss Leha was actually put on probation with this court?
No, I do not.
You wrote a letter for Miss Alvarez in the course of the family law case as well, correct?
Yes, I did.
And in that letter, you discussed your credentials about what you had done for Miss Alvarez. And have you had to testify in that family law case?
No, I'm not.
And are you aware that that is a pretty tense situation pending over in the 30th Circuit Court about parenting time for these children?
I did not know that.
So since you don't know the specifics of the reason why someone purporting to be Ms. Leha called and asked your credentials, is it a fair statement to say it could be to determine if your letter that is involved in the family case was a true and accurate representation of your role at Crystal Ray?
Yeah, there's thousands of them throughout the court system, I'm sure.
Okay, so that could be a reason why she was contacting Ms. Stolas, who does not directly work with Ms. Alvarez, correct?
Correct.
No further questions, please.
Correct.
Yes, Your Honor. Brief. Ms. Dahl, how do we know that it was Ms. Leha contacting your work?
We do not. Except she told her who she was,
When you say she told her who
My
she was, who are
boss.
you referring to?
my supervisor.
Did you speak with your supervisor following?
Yes,
And was your supervisor able to confirm who called?
yes.
Who was that?
Ms. Leha.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear. The allegation, ma'am, is that Ms. Leha was calling your boss, asking about you?
Yes,
Okay. And so when did you write the letter to the probation department?
I wrote it on the 4th
Of what?
of March, April.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Dahl. You may be excused. Be quiet. Your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The people call Brendan Hanna to the stand.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury.
I do.
You can have a seat, Mr. Hannah. You can proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Hanna.
Afternoon.
What do you do for a Where?
54 District Court.
Do you know Miss Julie Leha?
I do.
How do you know Miss Leha?
She's on my caseload, she's a probation officer.
Are you aware if she is on probation?
I am,
Since when?
since March of 2023.
Are you aware of the terms of her probation?
I am.
Is one of those terms of her probation to not have any direct or indirect contact with someone named Ruby Alvarez?
Yes.
Was she notified of this condition?
Yes,
On or about April 5th, 2023, did you receive some information stating that she had violated this?
I did.
What was that information?
I received the letter from Heather Dow at Crystal Ray, as well as a police report from the Lansing Police Department, made by Miss Alvarez. I don't know if it was made by Miss Alvarez, but it was involving Miss Alvarez and Miss Leha.
What did you do after receiving that information?
I submitted a probation violation
Why did you submit a probation violation?
for alleged contact.
Can you tell me a little bit about that alleged contact?
From what I understand, it would refresh my memory to look at that.
Would you like me to approach you with a copy of that?
From what I understand is, it's, Miss Leha was attempting to contact Crystal Ray, asking about Miss Alvarez, is what I was told. And it's stating in the police report. That's really all I knew. But just from that, getting that, police report, alleged contact, I had to go ahead with the violation.
Now, in your opinion as a probation officer, would trying to reach out to someone else to get information about the protected party be a violation of that no contact order?
I believe it would be third party contact. And that's why I did this, just clear the air and be taken care of the violation process.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Ms. Enz?
I have no question.
Thank you. Mr. Henry, you may be excused. Do you have any other witnesses today?
No, Your Honor.
Will the defense be calling any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
You can make your argument.
Yes, Your Honor. Albeit what we don't have here is obvious direct contact from Ms. Leha approaching Ms. Alvarez. What we do have here, I believe, would qualify as third-party contact to Ms. Alvarez. Ms. Leha, or Ms. Dahl testified that Ms. Leha is not a client at Cristo Rey. She has no reason to be contacting there other than to get information about Ruby Alvarez. While Ms. Dahl did not answer the phone and speak to Ms. Leha specifically, she did talk to her supervisor about it. The person on the phone identified themselves as Ms. Julie Leha, and they were contacting, trying to get information about Ruby Alvarez, the protected party of the no contact order. Mr. Hanna testified that based on this information and a police report that was filed, he felt this was a violation of the terms of her probation, that no contact had been breached through a third party, and that this would qualify as a violation of the probation.
Your Honor, I don't believe the burden of proof has been met here. The central witness here was Ms. Heather Dahl, and she did not speak to the person on the phone. She couldn't even say for sure if Ruby Alvarez's name was in fact mentioned. What she did say was that the caller was asking about her credentials. And that had nothing necessarily to do specifically with Ruby Alvarez, because she didn't, there's no evidence that she mentioned her name. So that's not indirect contact. That is contact with someone because there is a family law case going on, which that person put her credentials out there in a letter to verify that those were in fact the credentials. So I don't believe that this has been a violation. I think, quite frankly, what has happened here, we have a biological mother and a custodial stepmother right now who has full custody with the father of the children in a very tense situation. They're currently in the family court trying to work this out as far as what Miss Alvarez's parenting time will look like, as she's no longer apparently trying to obtain custody of these children. However, I expect that as long as Miss Leha is on probation, further reports will be made because of the animosity that Miss Alvarez has for her and what she thinks is her influence in the family court case. I think that what Miss Leha was doing on that date was working with her husband as a stepmother of these children to make sure that the letter was actually accurate and intending no contact with Miss Alvarez. It was specifically with Miss Stolas, who is the supervisor of Miss Dahl, not even with Miss Alvarez's direct care worker, who is Miss Dahl. So if there is going to be a violation, which again, I don't believe the burden of proof has been met here to show that there's been any direct or indirect contact with the victim in this case, I would ask that she be given a warning, because in all other aspects, she is doing wonderful on probation. She's completed her anger management. She's trying to do best by these children as she can by staying involved, showing up, and making sure that she's working with her husband to provide support during this difficult time. Thank you.
Okay, well, that record testimony today. I recognize the prosecutor doesn't get to choose the cases. And I also recognize that the probation officer has a duty to do his due diligence just based on the limited information that he was provided. That's what brought us here today. But what I've heard today does not, in my opinion, amount to a violation of the no contact order. So I'm not going to sustain a violation at this time. Sounds like there's a messy situation brewing in the family courts. And this court wants no parts of that. And Ms. Leha has completed anger management. I think it was the only programming I required. Did you provide proof of that to your probation officer?
I completed last Tuesday and Jim was going to send things over to
He
Pat.
said he's got it. Oh, yep, he's right there. He said he's got it. What about your fines and costs? You paid those?
Yeah, I only owe $184.
I'm gonna discharge you from probation and I am going to refer the balance to collections, okay?
Okay,
Because I don't want any parts of this.
thank you,
And
Judge.
good luck to you all over at the circuit court.
Thank you. I'm smart, okay? Make good choices. You did. Great job. I can't believe you're only an intern. You're so smooth.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mr. Who? Wetzel? What's your name, sir? Ma'am? McCollum? Okay, yes. ma'am. You can come up, Mr. McCollum. On the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Gabriel McCullum, file number is 22-01756. Mr. McCullum, today's the date. Excuse me, set for an arraignment for a probation violation. I have a requested summons for probation violation. It's dated for May 9, 2023. The allegations are that you tested positive at EverHealth on May 3rd, 2023 for benzoid diaphene with the result, excuse me, of 1,293 nanograms, and for cocaine with the result of 314 nanograms. There's also a violation of the amended order of probation for March 6, 2023, indicating that you failed to provide verification of a 12-step attendance 3 times per week. So you have the right to have a contested hearing. You have the right to be represented by counsel during that contested hearing. If you're found to be in violation of your probation can be revoked. And you could be sentenced to a term of jail time. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
You also can have increased programming, and your probation status can be extended if necessary. It looks like you're scheduled to be on probation right now until December 1st, 2023, correct?
Yes, sir.
You also can have other treatment or oversight imposed as a result of a probation violation. Do you understand the possible ramifications of a probation violation?
Yes.
Do you want to request a public defender to represent you?
Yes, sir.
The court will enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf for the violation. I know here that you're requesting public defense representation. I think that's left. And so if you would have, we'll get you a date for your hearing, and then when Mr. Lee is available, he can meet with you to make sure that they have accurate contact information, okay? June 12th, at 1:30. Hearing will be June 12th at 1:30. Okay? You can have a seat there. We'll get you a copy of your notice to appear, and then you can talk to Mr. Lee. You're welcome. Did you see Jalen Mitchell today?
No.
We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Joshua Dale Wetzel. File number is 22-02354. Council appearance.
Andrea McCray appearing on behalf of the people.
Assistant Public Defender John Lee appearing on behalf of Joshua Dale Wetzel.
Today was the date and the time set for a hearing on a probation violation. How are we proceeding?
Your Honor, Mr. Wetzel is prepared to plead guilty to 3 of the 4 alleged violations. I have been in contact with the prosecutor who has advised me that they will not be offering any evidence in regards to the 4th violation, the threatening behavior.
There a pending charge or something from?
No, Judge.
Oh.
Based off my reading of the police report, I think the most appropriate here would be the no contact. I don't think that people would be able to establish threatening behavior.
Got it.
occurred.
Sounds good. Okay, and that's true, Mr. Wetzel. You want to plead to 3 of the 4 violations?
I have to speak with my counsel, yes.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give just the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury? You can put your hand down. Do you understand, sir, that you did have the right to have a contested hearing in the violation today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you understand that you have the right to have the prosecution and the probation department put forth evidence today to establish whether or not you violated your probation status. You want to waive that hearing today? Anybody threatening you to get you to waive the hearing? Anybody making any promises to you in exchange for you waiving the hearing? So you want to enter a plea because you believe you violated your probation terms?
Yes, Your Honor.
As to violation number 16, that you failed to submit to random drug testing at Reality Counseling back on March 13, 2023. How do you plead?
Guilty.
And as to the violation that you were suspended from domestic violence program at Cognitive Consultants on February 22nd, 2023 for lack of payment. How do you plead? As to the violation that you failed to adhere to the no contact order on or about March 22nd, 2023. How do you plead? On a factual basis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wetzel, is it true that you were placed on probation in regards to a guilty plea to domestic violence?
Yes, it is.
And is it true that as part of that probation requirement, you were to submit to drug testing?
Yes.
Is it also true that on March 13th, 2023, that you failed to submit to drug testing?
Yes, it is.
As part of your probation, were you also expected to pay for a domestic violence program?
Yes, it is.
And on February 22nd, 2023, were you suspended from that program for lack of payment?
Yes, I was.
And it was further ordered that you not have any contact with the complaining witness in this case, Miss Melissa Hunt, correct?
Yes.
And on or about March 22nd, 2023, were you at 1516 Centennial Courtyard?
Yes.
And is that Miss Hunt's residence?
Yes, it is.
And so you had contact with Miss Hunt and violated the no contact rule.
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any questions from the prosecution?
No, Judge, thank you.
The court is satisfied with the factual basis. I will accept your plea to violations. The first 3 violations, that is. Court will withdraw violation number 4. I find your plea to be made freely, voluntarily, and intelligently. The recommendation is to continue the probation status and to impose a weekend in jail. Says that your probation officer spoke with you the day of the violation. You never told them about contact with the victim, and that you mentioned issues with a underlying health issue. He has been in and out of the hospital. Counsel, you can address the court before sentencing.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would ask the court to consider that Mr. Wetzel lives at home with his parents. He has been working with his father in his father's construction business. He's also been taking firefighting classes at LCC, as his main goal is to become a firefighter, and it's what's primarily driving his behavior. He has been paying rent, and even though he was working, he fell behind and got behind on his domestic violence program payments. He has advised me that he will be able to get caught up with that within the next 2 weeks. He also advised me that at the time of the failure to report for drug testing, he was in the hospital. He does suffer from Crohn's disease and is dealing with illness. He has further advised me that he understands the seriousness of the no contact order, and that it is his wish and desire and intent to have no further contact with this home, as again, that seems to result in negative consequences for him. And as I said, he's got a goal. He wants to become a firefighter, and he understands that his behavior needs to come into line with that goal. So we ask the court to consider the fact that he's doing some good things and working, going to LCC, and reinstate him in the probation.
If being a firefighter is what's driving your behavior, then you would be fully compliant with a court order and trying to avoid any further engagement with the courts. If that's your goal, I don't know anybody who gets to those levels of public servants by committing crimes.
I unfortunately have suffered outside of the courts because of my actions. My father's actually the fire chief in Montville, so this is really human. My
Yeah, so if that's your goal, then you need to redirect your actions, because the way you've been going about it has not been lucrative. And albeit I'm happy to hear that you have no interest in further continuing your communication with the victim. The reality of the case is that there's no contact order, so whether you wanted to or not, you were supposed to follow the court order.
yes,
And so court orders aren't always about what we want to do, but you have to learn how to be in control of your behavior regardless of what you feel like you want to do. There's an order for you not to do something, you don't do it. And the order is in your best interest, for no other reason, but to keep you from putting yourself in a position that would place you further away from your ultimate goal. And it sounds like your goal is to become a firefighter. Now, is that correct?
yeah, to be specific, I would love to be a soldier.
Then it sounds like you probably need to be super laser focused on that.
That's true.
And so with that being stated, I don't think that a weekend in jail is meaningful. I think I'm going to continue your probation at this time. You're scheduled to be on probation until December 16th. Like you. Gonna get one last chance to be compliant. And you need to go ahead and re-engage with your domestic violence programming
Yes,
and provide evidence of that to your probation department. And you need to continue your testing. Okay, sir? They reiterate there's a no contact order. You're not to have contact directly or indirectly with Melissa Hunt. You understand that? And are you clear on what direct and indirect communication would mean?
that's true.
Well, just if you have any questions, you could ask those questions. I know you were sitting here for the last hearing. I don't know if that confused you at all. I don't want you to be confused. Don't try to call any place and ask about her either, okay? That won't work, okay? So your probation will be continued. Any additional matters for the record?
No, Judge, thank you.
Further, thank you.
You're all set. Do you have anybody